messy marriages, secrets, murder, and rich people behaving badly. Here is my predictions of what will happen in the novel Look Closer by David Ellis. But first, before we get into that, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button down below. And make sure you like this video if you like this video to get more content like this. So without further ado, let's get into this prediction. Okay, so I'm going to be making a prediction of this book, what I think is going to be happening just based on the cover and the blurb. Okay, so we can look at the cover here. We see a lady standing in a window of a home. There is somebody walking here on the street. The cover has very dark tones to it, but it's lit kind of. They're both in shadow. And it kind of seems like one person is watching the other. We got like some trees around. There are also like other houses around. So they're not like in a secluded type of area. Okay, yeah, there's a lamp that's being shone on both. So like, oh, this person is also kind of standing in the light in the shadow. This person is in the light in the shadow, and over a light as well. So like maybe there are like secrets that are gonna come to light. The following floors underneath are like dark or whatever. Yeah. So, and it looks like it's about to be like morning. So I really feel like maybe this is something where like secrets are gonna come to light. Maybe like one person is watching the other, or they could be like watching each other throughout this novel. Like maybe they're like suspicious of one another. Okay, let's read the blurb. Simon and Vicky couldn't seem more normal. A wealthy Chicago couple, he a respected law professor, she an advocate for domestic violence victims. A stable, if unexciting, marriage. But one thing's for sure, absolutely nothing is what it seems. The pair are far from normal, and one of them just may be a killer. Okay, so maybe, as we saw in the photo, one person watching the other. When the body of a beautiful socialite is found hanging in a mansion in a nearby suburb, Simon and Vicky's secrets begin to unravel. Okay, secrets. A secret whirlwind affair. A $20 million trust fund about to come due. A decades-long grudge and obsession with revenge. These are just a few of the lies that make up the complex web, and they will have devastating consequences. And while both Vicky and Simon are liars, okay, just who exactly is conning who? Part Gone Girl and part Strangers on a Train, Look Closer is a wild roller coaster of a read that will have you questioning everything you think you know. Okay, first and foremost, definitely something I feel like I'll be interested in. I actually have not read Gone Girl or Strangers on a Train, so I'm kind of happy about that because I don't want it to be too much ruined with what I'm expecting. Okay, so yeah, let's make our predictions based on the blurb now. Okay, so solely based on, it said they kind of are both liars. So obviously we already know they're both keeping secrets from each other, as I kind of predicted with the cover. They're both lying, which I didn't necessarily expect, but they're both lying, which I feel like is an interesting thing. I find typically with these books, like when they say that they're both lying, it's usually like one person is like the supreme liar and the other person is just kind of lying, not innocently, but they have good reason, like good moral reason to lie. So I'm interested to see if they're just both like awful people who are lying, as opposed to like one person's awful and one person's morally good, but lying to like, you know, lying to kind of protect themselves in a good way. I feel like this is also a situation where it could be possible where they are both manipulating like the same situation that would be happening in the novel without each other knowing it. Like they're both like lying about the same thing, but not necessarily knowing it, or maybe one person is aware of what the other is doing and thus they are lying to that person about what they know. Maybe. I also feel like this is going to be a book where we have different perspectives, like when they go back and forth between, I don't know, like say like we have a chapter that's focused on Amy, and then we have a chapter that's focused on David. I don't even, did they mention, oh sorry, they did mention their name. They have a chapter that's focused on Simon and a chapter that's focused on Vicky, and we go back and forth. Maybe it's a possibility that at some point towards the middle or end of the book, they're going to throw in another person's perspective it's going to be like, whoa, oh my gosh. There's a possibility where we might not necessarily get a person's name, but we know that this person is constantly mentioned throughout the story, and towards the middle or end, when we get their perspective, we get their name and we find out that they're involved. I think that would be interesting. It also mentions a $20 million trust fund. So obviously I'm suspecting that this murder has to be tied to this $20 million trust fund, right? I'm hoping so. And I'm hoping it's just not like this one-off thing that sometimes some authors do where they mention it and then it's like it has a tie, but like the reasoning is not really that interesting. Like the tie to it isn't that interesting, or like the reasoning when it comes back to the murder is not that interesting. I'm hoping that maybe it does play a significant role. I'm going to assume that it does. It was mentioned in the blurb. And so, yeah, I'm assuming that this murder has to do with that $20 million trust fund. Maybe they are both after it for different reasons that we will find out in the novel. Obviously, that means somebody needed this death to happen for them to get this money from this $1 million trust fund. There's an affair, so maybe there's and the affair and the $20 million trust fund can assume that there's a false relationship, there's fraud, maybe there's identity theft somehow, maybe that has to do something with it. Maybe one person is actually another person in this marriage. Maybe somebody is lying, or well, they are both lying, but maybe one is actually someone else. It's also possible that this socialite's death maybe had dirt on either Simon or Vicky, and maybe that's why she was murdered. Maybe both of them tried to murder her at separate times and they both don't know it. And then she turns up dead and they both think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get caught. Not knowing that they both tried to murder her, and then maybe it's somebody else who ended up murdering her and they don't know it, or one of them did and we'll find out who it was by the end of the story. Of course, I would hope so, right? So yeah, the socialite, maybe she had dirt on them. She was blackmailing them. She was the one in the affair. She knew about the trust fund or had something to do with the trust fund. And also, like I said at the beginning with the cover, there's a theme of maybe watching somebody, or just, obsession maybe, because we see somebody watching the other. Maybe they're watching to see what they're going to do, or maybe because they're obsessed with this person, maybe they're watching that person. It seems like it's a woman in the window and a man that's walking on the road. So it's possible that it's like a woman who's obsessed with the man, or maybe she's just watching to see what he's doing. We don't know. We'll have to see once we read. So yeah, maybe somebody's watching each other, either one another, the other person, maybe because they're obsessed, or just to watch their next move because they're suspicious of them, or to protect themselves, or to be one step ahead. I also think that typically, like when we mention like affairs in books, I definitely feel like, not all the time, but I feel like a lot of time that might be kind of like a red herring. Like it will kind of feel like maybe going into this that this is going to be the motive, but it turns out to be a bigger story behind it all. At least that's what I personally am hoping for. And even if it isn't a red herring, but it kind of kicks off the reasoning and it kind of spirals out of control after that. But given the blurb of this book, I do think that the affair is kind of like a red herring. It's not going to be the reason behind everything that is happening. And, kind of going back to what I said earlier, neither of them might be the killer, but they both kind of, I guess, benefited from this socialite being killed. Or maybe the person who seems guilty early on is definitely not going to be the killer. That's a trope, but I kind of like that trope because it throws you off. But I think it also throws you off because it's like, oh, you're thinking, oh, maybe this person is not the killer because they're mentioned too early. But then we kind of like, you kind of do away with them and then they come back to that person and you're like, oh my gosh. But it has to be done in a really good way, I think, for that to be like actually a good reveal. Also, we have the husband being mentioned as being a law professor. So maybe that will come into play. Maybe he thinks he can outsmart people because he knows the law. Maybe he thinks he can outsmart investigators. Maybe he thinks he can outsmart his wife. Maybe he'll use his knowledge of the law to his advantage to try to figure out certain things or to pull one over on other people. Furthermore, as I mentioned about the narration going back and forth between perspectives of Simon and Vicky, I feel like because they're both liars, as it is mentioned in the blurb, and they clearly want us to know that, I think that this will be kind of like an unreliable narrative. Like we're going to have their perspectives are going to be unreliable because we're not going to know who to trust, who's telling the truth. So yeah, I feel like, and I don't know, like the fact that they mention it, because typically I feel like when we have unreliable narrators, it's not always explicitly known. But I think they want us to know this because there's definitely a deeper mystery here. So we know that we cannot trust them, but then it's kind of questioning like, who can we trust then? And trying to make us kind of figure out the mystery on our own. Like, what about what they're telling us is actually the truth? Yeah, so final predictions for maybe the ending of this novel would be maybe they both planned separate crimes that accidentally collide. One spouse set the other up from the beginning. The murder victim isn't who we think they are. Or 4, someone who is dead isn't actually dead. So yeah, these are my thoughts and predictions for what is going to be happening throughout the novel, for the ending of the novel, for Look Closer, the novel by David Ellis. I'm going to read this book and then I'm going to come back and say if I was right or wrong. I'm going to give my review of the book, my thoughts. Was I disappointed? Did I love it? Was it mediocre? All of that jazz. And so, yeah, if you want more content like this, please make sure you click the subscribe button down below. Make sure you like this video. Comment if you've read this book, if you liked it yourself. Don't give any spoilers yet. But yeah, comment if you liked it yourself. Tell me, based on like the cover and the blurb, would you have picked this book up for yourself to read? And yeah, again, make sure you like and comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.